Aloha, namaste, and welcome. Let's see, I'm going to adjust my microphone here. There we go. My name is Janapati Das, and we are back today to read some more Krishna book stories and discuss them. But first, of course, and foremost, we will always start with the hearing and chanting of Krishna's names, which is the prime benediction for humanity at large. It not only spreads the rays of a benediction moon, benefits the living entity by blessing them with love for God, which is something we already have as living entities, but we have forgotten coming into the material world in our full enviousness. And so it not only blesses us with that for love for God, but an understanding, true transcendental knowledge, true science about what is the difference between spirit and matter and who is the controller of both. How can we have a loving relationship with God? Many, many other questions. So let's chant a little bit. Haribo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So welcome back again. Of course, if you are new to this channel and you're very interested in the Krishna book reading, feel free to go back to my beginning video on the introduction of the Krishna book and watch the videos through. There are quite a few there. If you haven't liked or subscribed to my channel, please do so, and feel free to comment and share on the videos. Now, we were reading this exciting story. It is a very exciting story of Kavalayana, am I saying that right? And Muchukunda, the king who had burned the Yavana king to ashes in the cave. I think we probably remember that from last time. And of course, King Muchukunda was wondering who Krishna was, and he explained who he was, and we had just gotten to this part where he started praying to Krishna. So here we go. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I can understand that all living entities on this planet are illusioned by your external energy and are enamored of the illusory satisfaction of sense gratification. Being fully engaged in illusory activities, they are reluctant to worship your lotus feet. And because they are unaware of the benefits of surrendering unto your lotus feet, they are subjected to various miserable conditions of material existence. That's about summarizes everything, right? So the living entity, of course, is lost in the material world. By nature, the living entity is Satchidananda Vigraha. In other words, they are a spiritual form of eternal bliss and joy. You know, Satchidananda, full of knowledge, right? Eternal and blissful, happy. But that's nobody in this world. Why is that? That's because we are not our material body, nor we our material mind. We are not this material energy, the things that make up our matter, the mind. And I'm going to actually be talking about that tonight. Or if you see this video later, it'll be in the Yoga Kirtan Hawaii Facebook page. You can go into the library and watch about it. But when reading this from in the Bhagavad Gita as it is, there is a chapter 7 which talks about is the transcendental knowledge, the knowledge of the absolute, right? And so it explains, Krishna is explaining the difference between spirit and matter, excuse me, the inferior and the superior energy, and who the controller is of both. In other words, he is the controller of both. Mostly in material science, it only covers a very, very base element, and that is the material energy, or material science covers material energy. And that's sort of the all in all. There are scientists who believe in God. They do. But most scientists don't. They have no way of entering into it through their speculative minds and senses. So therefore, they do not understand it, or sometimes they outright deny it because they have no way of entering into it. And so this basically explains this material energy, right? The material energy of what we are within. In other words, spirit creates matter. Spirit animates matter. Everything that moves in this material world is because of this presence of spiritual energy within this material energy. There would be no need for the material world if the living entities did not want to come to the material world and play Krishna. In other words, be envious of Krishna and want to try to find some kind of happiness in here. And that's what people do in this material world. They engage in this futile and endless attempt of trying to find happiness in this material world. And we've all been through it. You know, if we're in older bodies, like myself, my body's 53, which is not extremely old, but it's definitely, you know, leaving sort of the tail end of middle age. And we can all remember, for those of us who are around my age or even young or older, can remember when we were younger and our, older people saying, oh, it's, whatever. It's not really, everything kind of falls apart and you're like, what are you talking about? I can really, if I do it my way, then I'll be happy, So, now we're here and we're like, oh, that didn't really work. And we look to the younger generation and they're like, oh, well, if we do it our way, we will find happiness. If we just make enough TikTok videos, or if become a TikTok star, YouTube star, become a pop star, or whatever, whatever it might be in this day and age, that it was for us a different, means when we were younger. It's an illusory activity. Why? Because maybe you get some success, but we don't know, what kind of fire you get out of that. It's like you're stepping into the fire sometimes when you become a star. There's a lot of unhappiness around it, or the pressure crushes in on you, and a lot of popular stars end up engaging in drug use or alcohol use, or suicide at worst case scenario, or overdose. There's just so many situations. And even this new, just the latest musician, I think it was one of the brothers of the Backstreet Boys, found dead in the bathtub. I don't know if it was drug overdose or what, probably, because generally if you're drowned in your bathtub, it's because you're intoxicated and you pass out or something. So this attempt to find some kind of gratification, it's all illusory. So maybe you get that. But even then, maybe you live an okay life. You don't get into the drugs. You don't get into the alcohol. You're a star one day, and then the next day your records are in the bargain bins. Nobody knows who you are. You're like 70 and you're trying to do these reunion tours, and it's just, but all your audience is a bunch of old people too, and nobody from the younger generation even knows who you are anymore. They're just onto the new flavor. So then you're like looking back and going, oh, it was great when I was a star. So that's the illusory activities. And the real happiness, the real success in life is to come to know your relationship with Krishna, engage in the service to Krishna. That is the greatest joy and greatest happiness. And it's liberating because, I'm not my body. When this life is over, I can engage in my service, in happy service of my Gurudev and Krishna, which is also serving all living entities. So you feel fulfilled, you feel happy. And you also know that when my body dies, there's no fear, because you're going to go back to Krishna anyways. Or that's, in another state, maybe you'll go into another body and continue on with your spiritual life. No one really knows. But regardless of the death has no sting, as it says in the Bible. Death has no sting, like it does. This is the greatest fear. Even those people in their illusory think, they're sort of like putting off the okay, I'm not going to think about death, but or they'll think, oh, whatever, you create all these things about God because you're afraid of dying. Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe you'll be afraid of death when you realize there's no thing to go, and then you believe that there's just annihilation, and that's kind of a terrifying feeling too. So anyways, I digress here a little bit. We are getting to this point. Being fully engaged in illusory activities, they are reluctant to worship your lotus feet because they are unaware of the benefits of surrendering unto your lotus feet. They are subjected to various miserable conditions of material existence. That's material life right there. Regardless if you're rich or poor, it's miserable. They are foolishly attached to so-called society, friendship, and love, which simply produces different kinds of miserable conditions. Illusioned by your external energy, everyone, both man and woman, is attached to this material existence, and they are all engaged in cheating one another in a great society of the cheaters and the cheated. It is. It's really, when it comes down to it, if you really analyze, you think, okay, why do people do what they do? They do what they do, even when it seems kind of beneficial or benevolent or whatever. That was the word I was thinking, benevolent. They're really trying to get what they can. They're trying to get ahead, materially. And this is kind of what it is. And people trying to cheat one another in one way or another, some very blatantly and some more subtly. These foolish persons do not know how fortunate they are to have obtained the human form of life and they are reluctant to worship your lotus feet. This is an extremely valuable form of life. Why? Because in every other form of life, lower animal forms and plant forms, there is no means by, you can eat, you can sleep, you can mate and defend, like that's what a human does also. But humans have a capability to inquire why, why am I suffering? What am I doing? What should I be doing? Other than eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Is there a higher truth? Is there a God? What is the meaning of life? Who am I? Plants and dogs don't sit around and discuss philosophy. My cat just comes to me every day at the same time to feed me. He wants to go to the bathroom. He wants to sleep 16 hours a day. He's in the body. That living entity is in the body of a cat. You cannot sit there and inquire. I can't sit there and talk about Bhagavad Gita to the cat and discuss that. But I can, offer water to Krishna. I can chant Krishna's names to him. I can play Krishna. I can show him a picture of Krishna. Those things, you can do. But that is my obligation in the human form of life. And because I'm in a human form, I understand there's a living entity in my body of my cat that I need to help. And so this is the way we can help humanity, not just humans, but all living creatures, by chanting Krishna's names, by offering our food, even giving crumbs of a bread that you've offered to ants or bugs. It's all beneficial. Chanting Krishna's name. When I say Krishna, all the living entities, all the microbes living entities and microbes and little ants on my desk and stuff like that hear Krishna. They hear that transcendental name. It's very wonderful. By the influence of your external energy, they are simply attached to the glare of material activities. They are attached to so-called society, friendship, and love like dumb animals that have fallen into a dark well. Sometimes it happens. Animals aren't paying attention. They're these wells, and they fall into them. They're not paying attention, like living entities. Why are we here? What's the purpose of our life? Is our purpose of our life to be thinking about politics all the time? Unless that's a service to God? No, not really. Is our purpose in our life to go on and, fiddle around on Facebook and try to watch TikTok videos of girls dancing and changing clothes or whatever? No, that doesn't really help us in any way, So what is the purpose of our life? That is something, we're very much like dumb animals that are wandering around, falling into the well, and we waste our precious form of life as a human. Come back into a body of an animal where we can't do anything about. We're into eating, sleeping, mating, defending again, without it being able to inquire about spiritual truth. The example of a dark well is given because the fields there are many wells, unused for years and covered over by grass, and the poor animals, without knowing of them, fall into them. And unless they are rescued, they die. Being captivated by a few blades of grass, the animals fall into a dark well and meet death. It's a very good analogy. We're like, what can I do? Oh, I want to do that. I want to go over here, watch that YouTube video. I want to, go out and have a Starbucks Frappuccino and they're just like completely oblivious to what, they're just like, oh, I want that. I want that. I want to have that. I want to taste that. I want to eat that. I want to enjoy that little blades of grass. And then they just fall, they die. Similarly, foolish persons, without knowing the importance of the human form of life, spoil it simply for sense gratification and die unnecessarily without any useful purpose. And if you really think about sense gratification, how much of it you really, really enjoyed? I mean, probably 90% of the things that we do is to avoid pain, or uncomfortableness, I should say. Oh, that was a good sleep. No, why you sleep? Because you're tired. Your body needs rest, right? That food was really, really good. but it tasted good because you're hungry and your body is suffering from not eating enough food. If you don't drink water and you're like drinking water, you're like, oh, I'm enjoying this water. Well, you're enjoying it because your body really needs it. So you're stopping the suffering. So there's very little actual just independent pleasure that isn't some kind of like stopping of suffering in the material world. My dear Lord, I am not an exception to this universal law of material nature. I am also one of those foolish persons who has wasted his time for nothing, and my position is especially difficult. On account of my being situated in the royal order, I was more puffed up than ordinary persons. An ordinary man thinks of becoming the proprietor of his body or of his family, but I began to think in that way on a larger scale. I wanted to be the master of the whole world, and as I became puffed up with ideas of sense gratification, my bodily concept of life became stronger and stronger. My attachment for home, wife and children, for money, and for supremacy over the world became more and more acute. In fact, it was limitless, so I remained always attached to thoughts of my material living conditions. So, it's a very interesting point, and I was thinking about this as I was driving over the Poly, and I thought, it's very interesting. It's not some of the major problem is our thought that we actually own and control anything. In the Sri Upanishad it said that all things animate and inanimate are owned and controlled by the Supreme Lord. They're not owned and controlled by the living entity, and that the living entity understands his quota. What does that mean? That means by karma we've been given a certain allocation of things. And we shouldn't unnecessarily, that's also Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Instruction says, we shouldn't unnecessarily hanker or strive for material sense gratification, because what's going to come to you is going to come to you, That's just kind of what it's going to be. But the things that even were allocated, we don't know how long we're going to have them. I mean, even the idea of ownership is kind of ridiculous, because who is it that actually gave us did somebody give us a decree to say that we own anything, that we own our body? Is there any kind of writing in anywhere? No, we just assume that we own things. This is my body, this is my wife, this is my house, this is my car, this is my job, this is my country, this is my dog. It's like, it's all this sort of illusionary, we have things that come to us and we temporarily in our control, but we don't know how long those things are going to be, and we don't know how long our body is going to be around without dying. So it's a very important point. And here King Muchukunda is making that point that, the living entity in the material world comes into a position of great power sometimes because of their karma. Like he was a king, and in the king it's easy to be drunk on your power. And we see a lot of stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam that explain that, of how people become puffed up. King Indra, the king of heaven, and the lifting of Govardhan Hill, for example. Oh, Dhani Krishna, and all those people stole my my offering. King Indra is my offering. No, it was Krishna's offering, right? Krishna is the controller and owner of everything. So that's why he allows us to have certain things in our possession to basically be able, it's a loving offering. In other words, he gives us this opportunity. It's an opportunity, and that's where it comes to this point about the human form of life. This is a rare opportunity for us to be able to utilize what we have to offer it back to God and redevelop and reawaken our relationship, our loving relationship with Krishna that is eternal, that we have forgotten, and that we are lost in this material world samsara, birth and death, endlessly seeking for things that never fulfill us. It's very hellish. So King Muchukunda is making that point. He's saying, even I became very drunk and powered. We have a lot of leaders in politics and world leaders who are very much like that too, and their end does not end very well. They may have a long reign, like Mao or Stalin or whatever. Hitler, I guess, had for a while, but then it's gone. Then it's gone. It ends. So I always remain thoughts of my material living condition. Therefore, my dear Lord, I wasted so much of my valuable lifetime without any benefit. That's pretty self-explanatory. My misconception of life has been intensified. I began to think of this material body, which is just like a bag of flesh and bones. It's a bag of bones, it's a bag of pus and piss and crap. It's the most unpleasant, illusory bag of enjoyment that there is. And it just falls apart, and people try to lift things up and replace stuff to make it stay together. And it's like, people look at somebody and they think, oh, that person's so hot or so attractive or so beautiful. And then, but really, it's such an illusion. Really, what's being attractive is the living entity is attracted to another living entity because they are part and parcel of Krishna. So they're really attracted to the spiritual energy of that person. If that person died in front of them, they're not going to be like, ooh, that person's hot. They're like, ugh, yuck, right? Or if they just peeled off the skin off their face, or they cut their nose off, cut an ear off maybe, cut your tongue out, whatever it might be, peel your skin off one layer. It's horrifying. They have this artist in Germany, I forget his name, but he basically takes carcasses of bodies and puts some chemical in them and takes a picture of a person next to it and has this display of like the before, like what the same person looks like with the skin and without the skin, or like a dog. And it's amazing. And people go through those exhibits and they're just, whoa, it's like that illusion is shattered. So how strong is the sex desire that we're illusioned by this ugly pussy bag just because of a layer of epidermis, right? And in my vanity, I was like a dog who believes that he has become the king of human society. In this misconception of bodily life, I began to travel all over the world, accompanied by my military strength, soldiers, charioteers, elephants, and horses. Assisted by my many commanders and puffed up by power, I could not trace out your lordship, who is always sitting within my heart as the most intimate friend. I did not care for you, and this was the fault of my so-called exalted material condition. I think that, like me, all living creatures are careless about spiritual realization, which are always full of anxieties, thinking, what is to be done? What is next? But because we are strongly bound by material desires, we continue to remain in craziness. That's what it is. Yet in spite of our being so absorbed in material thought, inevitable time, which is only a form of yourself, is always careful about its duty, and as soon as the allotted time is over, your lordship immediately ends all the activities of our material dreams. It's wonderful. That's a beautiful statement. It's true. It's like, boom, time ends it all. Time waits for no one, That's what it is. It's like, it will end all of our enjoyments. And it could end it really soon. I was discussing this with my wife yesterday, and just like, the plans that you make in your life, and you have a certain direction you're going in life, but you throw in a factor of like a major accident or someone dying, it could completely change everything. As a time factor, you end all our activities as the hungry black snake swiftly swallows up a small rat without any leniency. It's not like, oh dear, it's true. People come to that point, and it's horrifying. They spent their whole life denying the existence of God, and just, thinking, I'm fine. And then like, boom, they're dying, and they're praying to God. Oh, please, or they're out in the middle of the ocean drowning, and they're praying to God, please, and it's just the end of their time, and it's over. Due to the action of cruel time, the royal body, which was always decorated with gold ornaments during life, and which moved on a chariot drawn by beautiful horses, or on the back of an elephant nicely decorated with golden ornaments, and which was advertised as the king of human society, that same royal body decomposes under the influence of inevitable time and becomes fit for being eaten by worms and insects and being turned into ashes or the stool of an animal. It's so true to today. You could take any famous person, to famous actors. They're so beautiful, they're so awesome, and now their body is just like the worm. There's nothing that could stop the fact that the worms go in, the worms go out, they come out lean, they go in lean, they come out stout. I remember that song as a kid. It's like true, you know. Your body is gonna be food for the dogs and for the worms and the rats and whatever. And but that's not you. That's just your body. That's just your external, your mortal coil, as they say. My dear Lord, not only do we become under the full control of this inevitable time after death, but also while living in a different way. For example, I may be a powerful king, and yet when I come home after conquering the world, I become subjected to many material conditions. It may be that when I come back after being victorious, all subordinate kings come and offer their respects. But as soon as I enter into the inner sections of my palace, I myself become an instrument into the hands of the queens. And for sense gratification, I have to fall down at the feet of women. That's a great thing too. The men will do the, you know, this is something that's actually, you know, women have picked up on a lot, you know, and they know how to manipulate men for what they want, because men are just like dogs. Oftentimes they can't control their sex desire. They want it so bad. They just like, I'll do anything for you, you know. And women are like, okay, you know. I want you to buy me this and buy me that and give me a house and give me kids. The material way of life is so complicated that before taking the enjoyment of material life, one has to work so hard that there is scarcely an opportunity for enjoying. That's what we were saying before. It's like most of the time we're trying to just maintain our life or to prevent suffering. And to attain the youthful condition with all material facilities, one has to undergo severe austerities and penances and become elevated to the heavenly planets. But also from a very, more modern thing. When your body gets older, you're like, you have to do a lot more austerities by working out and keeping it healthy and taking all these things and not eating the things you like to eat anymore. You have to, I got to keep it going, Because if you eat those things that you're not supposed to eat anymore, it's like your body just gets worse and worse. If one gets the opportunity of taking birth in a very rich or royal family, even then in that condition, he's always anxious to maintain the status quo and prepare for the next life by performing various kinds of sacrifices and by distributing charity. Even in the royal condition of life, one is not only full of anxieties because of his political administration, but he is also in anxiety over being elevated to heavenly planets. It is therefore very difficult to get out of the material entanglement, but somehow or other, if one is favored by you, by your mercy only, he is given the opportunity to associate with a pure devotee. That's the thing. If you can come into the contact, they say that God gives us Guru and Guru gives us God. If you really, really want to know, how to get out of this material world, and you pray to God, he will introduce you to his pure devotee, and pure devotee will teach you about how you can develop your love for a God. My dear Lord, only by your association of pure devotees one is entrapped by your lordship, who is the controller of both the material and the spiritual existences. That's what we're going to read about tonight in the Bhagavad Gita. And we're almost out of my battery on this, so I'm just going to finish this paragraph. You are the supreme goal of all pure devotees, and by association with pure devotees, one can develop his dormant love for you. So that's what happened. Our love for God has gone into dormant stage, and we've actually redirected in a lust, our desire to control the material energy, which is what we think our body is. We think we're our body. We think we are the material energy. Therefore, development of Krishna consciousness in the association of pure devotees is the cause of liberation from this material entanglement. So what we'll do, its prayer will go on. It's a very, very important and key prayer to remember. It's just a reminder of so many things, so many factors of this. So we're just going to go ahead and chant. Thank you very much. Haribo, Mitagor, Mitagor, Haribo, Haribo, Mitagor, Mitagor, Haribo, Haribo, Mitagor, Mitagor, Haribo, Haribo, Mitagor, Mitagor, Haribo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gauranga, 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 Hare Chaitanya, 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 Hare Gauranga, 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 Hare Chaitanya, 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 Hare Nitagor, Nitagor, Hare Nitagor, Nitagor, Hare Nitagor, Nitagor, Hare Nitagor, Nitagor, Hare. Okay, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much. And if you happen to watch this soon, tonight, Hawaii Standard Time, 7 o'clock, Tuesday. It's Tuesday night right now, the 8th of November. I will be on Yoga Kirtan Hawaii Facebook page with the Bhagavad Gita as it is, if you want to hear more about some yoga philosophy. Thank you very much. Namaste.